I know why you're here. You just got absolutely destroyed by Cymanti in a random multiplayer match, and you want to know what you can do to prevent this in the future. Don't worry though, I'm here to help. Cymanti definitely has some weaknesses, and in this video, I'll teach you how to exploit these weaknesses so you can finally defeat them. Fighting Cymanti can be scary, but what's even scarier is browsing the internet without a VPN. That's right, boys. Today's video is sponsored by ExpressVPN. Sending data over an unencrypted network is like using cloaks that can't turn invisible. Anyone with a bit of technical know-how can easily view whatever information you're sending and exploit it. ExpressVPN creates a secure tunnel between your device and the destination, masking whatever information you're sending. But how exactly does it work? ExpressVPN stops nefarious hackers in their tracks by applying a layer of best-in-class secure encryption to your data, essentially putting an unbreakable city wall around your information. It would take a hacker with a supercomputer millions of years just to crack it, but you'll be dead by then, so who cares? You want to know a fun fact? Your internet service provider can see exactly what you're doing on the internet, and in the US, your browsing data can be legally sold from your ISP to advertising companies. That's not cool! ExpressVPN prevents this from occurring by rerouting your traffic through their secure and encrypted servers, completely anonymizing you, and whatever weird things you might be using the internet for. Being a cybersecurity major, I understand the importance of using a VPN to protect your data. I highly recommend using ExpressVPN because there's nothing more important than your privacy. Sign up with my link in the video description to get 3 extra months absolutely free. Back to the video. First, my simplest advice. If you're not doing it already, give in and play as Barter. Barter is easily the strongest tribe in the game. It's worth noting that the rest of the advice I give in this video can be applied to any tribe, but if you really want to get serious about defeating Cymanti, playing as Barter is going to give you the best odds of success. Also, I should mention that most of the advice given in this video pertains to drylands maps, but I think it can still be useful on water-based maps as well. To beat a Cymanti player, you need to think like a Cymanti player. Cymanti has easy access to some of the most menacing units in the game, Hexapods. Nearly every Cymanti player you play against is going to use Hexapods because they know Hexapods break the early game. If you aren't positioning your units well or training enough of them, they can simply get the unit advantage and kill you early. Not only are Hexapods already really good units, but they become even stronger by being boosted by a shaman, which gives them more attack and an extra tile of movement. We'll talk more about Hexapods a bit later in the video. Using fungi, Cymanti can also get a Centipede up relatively early, and use that to close out their position if Hexapod spam doesn't work. The way you beat this aggression is by playing conservatively and methodically, and it requires some basic knowledge of positional play. So what are some of Cymanti's weaknesses? Well, they have trouble both expanding and upgrading their cities in tandem. Also, they upgrade their capital on turn 1 rather than turn 0. So they miss out on 2 early stars. Their starting tech isn't great, as it forces Cymanti to spend turns waiting for their cities to upgrade. It isn't even guaranteed that their second city will have fungi to even harvest. Given this, Cymanti has trouble collecting all the techs they're going to need for proper mid-game development. Of course, if they're going straight for riding and hexapod spam, they won't really be developing at all. Another weakness of Cymanti is that they have no access to roads to boost their unit's movement. So while their hexapods do have a wide range of movement, they are predictable nonetheless. Cymanti also has trouble taking cities from you in the late game. Their centipedes are actually quite fragile, taking only 5 warrior smacks to kill. You only need to worry about them if you let them eat your units and start growing. Let's talk more about hexapods. Yeah, those guys. The great menaces of Cymanti. They have the creep and sneak abilities, which means they get no movement penalty from rough terrain or zone of control. They have the movement of a rider and the damage of a swordsman. They can one-shot riders, and when they're boosted, they can even one-shot warriors without defense bonuses. Another fun fact, 5 boosted hexapods will kill a giant. They completely turn the game's exploration and combat on its head. What's that? You think the 2 or 3 warriors you were sending to a central village would be safe? Think again, bozo. The obvious counter to hexapods is rider roads, as a rider with roads can move a maximum of 4 tiles both when attacking and retreating, while a boosted hexapod can only move 3 tiles on attack and 2 on retreat. The solution is not that simple though, and this is a key factor why Cymanti is so good in the early game. It's much easier for Cymanti to buy riding and start spamming boosted hexapods than it is for a barter player to buy riding, roads, spam riders, and pay for all the roads as well. Simply throwing riders in their general direction isn't going to solve the problem either. You need to have vision on their cities and where their hexapods are. That way you can position your riders just out of range of Cymanti's hexapods, while still being able to road in and kill them. I typically accomplish this by taking 1 or 2 extra explorers that I may normally not take. Be careful though, you still need to make sure you're taking workshops to fund your roads. Here's a cool tip for you. If a hexapod suddenly appears out of the fog and kills one of your units, there's a little trick you can use to see where it goes. Simply tap on the hexapod, and when it retreats into the fog, the target circle around the hexapod will still be visible. This way, you can still continue to do math in your head while not having to keep track of which tile the hexapod is sitting on. Alright, so now we know how to counter hexapods, but how do we counter Cymanti as a whole? Obviously, knowing how to counter hexapods helps, but we also need a bit of positional play knowledge. We've already talked about how Cymanti is an aggressive tribe by nature. The secret to countering this aggression is keeping your cool and playing logically. Here's the deal. Cymanti can steal a city from you early on with aggressive plays and completely shut you down. If you don't let them do that, then you're fine. But how can you manage that? Well, there's a couple of things you can do. Play for the safe corner village behind your spawn if it's there, as it at least provides guaranteed income and a place to train units from. Don't assume you're ever safe either. Cymanti can kill 2 warriors on turn 5 easily, so avoid sending your warriors to their death in the center. Rather, push to the opposite side of the map from where Cymanti is to grab more cities as easily as possible. Also, as a general rule of thumb, when you step on a village, try to have enough units that if they kill you, you can still take them off the village. I should mention, you don't want to devote so many units to defending that you stop expanding. Cymanti will capture the entire map and kill you with numbers. Likewise, you don't want to devote so many units to expanding that you stop defending. Cymanti will easily slide into a valuable city, your capital even, and take it. The key is finding a balance. Cymanti will probably siege one of your cities at some point, just make sure you have the units to knock them off. While doing so, you need to continue locking down portions of the map for yourself. Now, it's probably going to upset you when I say this, but you also need to balance upgrading your cities with training units to defend and explore. If you're pumping all your early stars into training riders, you won't have the proper economy to launch any devastating counterattacks with roads. I know trying to balance these 3 aspects sounds difficult, but you'll get better at it with practice. Just trust me. Another important piece of advice is keep track of what vision your opponent has, as this can allow you to put your riders on more useful tiles. Check their cities to see if they got a workshop or an explorer in them. Also pay attention to how they're moving their units, as this can indicate the extent of their vision. If they just gave you a free hexapod kill with one of your riders, you can assume that either 1, they're a bad player and you'll be fine, or 2, they couldn't see your rider in the first place. Use this to your advantage. When fighting Cymanti, it's very important to have a safe and secure backline that you're able to defend cities and train units from. You don't want to train riders in your front cities if they instantly get one-shotted on the same turn you train them. It gets Cymanti's hexapods closer to becoming veterans, it causes you to lose stars that could have gone towards technology or giants, and it gets Cymanti closer to their killer monument. Not being able to train units in your front cities can give Cymanti a huge advantage in the mid-game. If you each have 6 cities, you can both train 6 units each turn. However, let's say Cymanti can kill any unit you train in 2 of your cities. This means you're effectively getting 4 units a turn. The result of this is Cymanti will slowly build up units and take one of your cities with sheer numbers. Now you have 5 cities and Cymanti has 7. If you don't play your cards right, the problem will get worse and worse, and you'll eventually lose. The best way to combat this situation is to avoid it altogether. You can do this by developing efficiently in the early game to prevent Cymanti from getting the city advantage. However, if you do find yourself in this position, use giants to your advantage. Have them buffer your cities and force Cymanti to deal with them while you go for free spirit and chivalry. Let's talk about Cymanti's super unit, the Centipede. I see a couple of people complaining that this thing is also overpowered, but in my opinion, it's a total pushover. After all, you only need 5 rider hits to kill it. The way you counter this thing is by not letting it grow. Much like hexapods, centipedes are predictable. You always know how far they can move at any given time. Build up units and keep them out of range of the centipede. Then, when it's vulnerable, road in and kill it. You can even leave a city open to bait it in if you want. Just make sure they can't pull any tricks and that you're able to unsiege. I want to talk about Cymanti's Shaman for a minute. If at any point your opponent blunders and leaves it undefended, go for the kill on it. Taking out Cymanti's Shaman will slow their expansion and offensive capabilities, especially in the mid-game. It will make playing the rest of the game a lot easier for you. If you are unsure of where their Shaman is, try to pay attention to where Cymanti is putting their Hexapods after they bounce. They'll usually bounce them near the Shaman, so they can reboost it on the same turn. Also, keep an eye out for any units you can see that get boosted from the fog. You can usually pinpoint where the Shaman is based on that information. Alright, I've taught you about Cymanti's weaknesses, their strengths, and what you can do to counteract their aggressive nature. Let's hop into a replay where I demonstrate all this information in action. You're probably going to recognize this replay as it goes on because it shows off a lot of the stuff we talk about in this video. I should mention I'm not actually the person playing. This is just a replay my buddy let me use. So really the first step whenever you get into any random multiplayer game is go to game stats and check the score. If you see a 630, you got two options. It's either Cymanti or it's Polaris on Drylands. If it's the latter, you're fine. If it's the former, well, you might have problems. You want to try and figure out if you're playing against Cymanti as early as possible. The way you play is going to change dramatically against Cymanti versus a normal tribe. So we're going to be watching the barter perspective. We'll be keeping the fog off as well. That way it's more realistic as to what you might see in an actual game. So we see that barter goes for this corner village. We talked about that. Actually moves off of it to go on the ruin. I should mention, they explicitly told me that they played the opening bad, just to show what would happen against a Cymanti player. I like moving off the village for the ruin, just because that's funny. You're going to recognize this position here. I think I show this like twice in the video. These two warriors going straight to the center. Just like how you want to figure out if you're playing against Cymanti, you want to try and figure out which corner they spawned in as quickly as possible, and basically expand in the opposite direction of that. So based on this hexapod here, coming in, we can assume that they probably spawned in the east corner, which means going north and northeast is more risky than going northwest. So this is where we're going to be expanding most of the game. Okay, so Cymanti is going to get this village and this ruin. And at this point, the position looks pretty darn brutal. Turn 5, still stuck at one city. What did the ruin give? Ruin gave stars. Okay, that's pretty nice. So notice we don't instantly go for rider roads in this position. We first try and develop. I believe barter is going to... Yeah, we get a bunch of tech here, and we're going to go for a math giant next turn, I believe. Cymanti does have a bit of trouble dealing with giants, depending on... I mean, of course they can throw 5 hexapods into it, but at that point, they just have no more units. So at this point, it's looking pretty scary. Cymanti is expanding west and is going to try to cut off barter from basically the entire rest of the map here. We're going to get like it looks like we'd wind up with like a 3 village to, 8 or 9 potentially. Not a great spot. Not a spot you want to be in. But the Cymanti player does make some mistakes throughout the game, which is going to let us, capitalize on the position a little bit. We're still trying to develop cities. You want to make sure your eco is, big chillin', that way you can afford rider roads and all that. So, boosted Centipede comes in. Little concerning. And I want you to notice how we have these 2 cities in the back here that's sort of acting as our backline to protect the capital. Very important. Safe places to train units. The position still doesn't look great. Now Cymanti has this city here, but the giants are actually going to take care of the Centipede pretty well. It dips. Now this boosted Centipede's over here threatening these catapults. So barter's now sieging this Cymanti city here, and is on this village. Position still doesn't look great, but it's looking a little better than what it was. We fended off the early Cymanti aggression. Now we're pulling them into the mid game, going to the late game. And that's where Cymanti really starts to struggle, is mid to late game. Just because I feel like their units just aren't built for it, really. So Cymanti sieges the capital. We don't really care, though, because we can just giant push with this fruit or kill it with a catapult. Both are fine options. Still leveling up cities, ecoing up, getting ready for big rider roads push whenever that needs to happen. At this point, we've built up a good deal of units in the back, so we can defend rather easily. We have the 2 catapults, 3 riders, a couple of warriors sprinkled throughout. Cymanti looks really scary here. They have 3 boosted hexapods and a boosted centipede. But if you really break it down, no matter where they put these units or what they do with them, it's just not a good trade for them at all. Like, I can throw it all into this giant. Okay, catapults kill centipede. If that even kills giant, I'm not sure. And, you can road this giant forward or whatever. You can try and go for this giant over here with these 3 units. That doesn't accomplish anything. So at this point, it's just going to be about slowly pushing back Cymanti with rider roads and using giants as pressure as well. Barter's going to get another giant up, and at this point, Cymanti actually resigns. Just because, in the mid game and going into the late game, they're just not that strong. And I mean, we can go ahead and look at their position here. Just disable the fog. It's not going great for them. They have 2 cities. Their spawn really wasn't that great. They have this 1 city 2 tiles away from their capital, and then this one 3 tiles away. Aside from that, though, there's not really a whole lot. On top of that, Cymanti in the mid game, just not as strong as, early game. We saw how menacing they were in the early game, completely knocking barter out of the center with those 2 hexapods and getting the village and the ruin. But thanks to some, conservative plays, keeping calm, building up a backline of units, ecoing up cities, getting giants, the position was able to be turned around rather convincingly as well. Like, I mean, this doesn't even look close right now. And so yeah, I chose this replay because I think it demonstrates a lot of what we were talking about in the video. I think that's going to wrap it up for this video, guys. I hope you all did enjoy. Hopefully, you can now, take down Cymanti in your random multiplayer matches and they won't seem like such a menace anymore. If this video helped you out and you did enjoy, be sure to hit the like button down below and subscribe for more epic Polytopia videos. If you want to support myself and the channel, you can become a channel member by hitting the join button down below. And remember to check out ExpressVPN using my link in the description. If you're looking for another video to watch, check out my video where I cover city upgrades in Polytopia. It's pretty important knowledge, it'll help you play better. And yeah, I'll see you all in the next video. Have a spectacular day.